Oi, pessoal, boa noite. É com muito prazer que nós estamos aqui inaugurando a transmissão online pelo canal do covidflix.com, o canal que nós criamos para fugir, né, da censura. Nós temos muito prazer de receber aqui conosco o cofundador do Frontline Covid Critical Care Alliance, médico pneumologista intensivista na Flórida, Dr. Pierre Kory, que tem mais de milhares de trabalhos publicados dentro da medicina intensiva, trabalhos relacionados também com ultrassonografia à beira do leito, e que está aqui para discutir conosco alguns aspectos sobre a pandemia da Covid. Welcome, Dr. Pierre Kory. I'm sorry, we talked last week with another of your co-founders. I think you are in an interview from Brazil for the very first time. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I have not.
Wow, such a pleasure and honor. Professor, I thank you so much for your kindness and your time. We know that you are very, very busy producing, researching, and also going abroad with this ultimately pandemic warrior from saving lives. Eu agradeço aqui a presença do Dr. Pierre Kory, que eu acho que é um dos heróis para a gente, desde o depoimento dele no Senado dos Estados Unidos em novembro de 2020, quando ele e o Dr. Paul Marik e todos os outros fundadores do grupo do Frontline Covid Critical Care Alliance colocaram para o Congresso americano centenas de evidências acerca de trabalhos com drogas reposicionadas para o tratamento precoce da Covid, dentre elas ivermectina, hidroxicloroquina, entre tantas outras. Hoje já temos mais de 18 drogas. Dr. Pierre, I would like to talk about from early on November 2020 on Senate, when your statement make a breakthrough message of hope to all of us. It has a huge impact also in public media, but also in medical groups. As myself, I know you from all over the year, as we have contact with other friends from Brazil working abroad, like Dra. Marina Bucay in Spain. But you from Frontline COVID, it's kind of our hope in America for this message of early treatment. From November 2020, what do you see from difference in medical practice and prescribing, repositioning drugs, and about the appealing of American people to do the early treatment?
Well, since the when I gave the testimony, I was very frustrated because we had already known that ivermectin could be really probably a solution to the pandemic for at least a month. And so, but after the testimony, the word sort of got out and a lot of attention was placed. And since that time, I have to say I have been demoralized, defeated, saddened, but also encouraged. So I thought we were going to solve this in a month. I really thought, like, once the word got out, everybody would pay attention and all the governments and health agencies would use ivermectin. That did not happen. But instead, I'm seeing rather a slow and steady increase of attention, discussion, and uptake. More and more doctors are using it. And now, with surges occurring again, even more people are giving attention to ivermectin. So we're getting there. It's just a lot slower than I thought.
O Dr. Pierre agora comenta que desde novembro, quando eles fizeram esse primeiro depoimento no Senado americano, ele ficou um pouco triste, desmotivado, por muito tempo e ainda hoje desmoralizado e sendo perseguido pelas proposições que eles colocaram. Mas o que eles achavam que iam ter resolvido da pandemia em um mês de revelação dos estudos e das evidências que já estavam lá postas, trouxe uma mudança muito mais lenta, mas que aos poucos ele observou vários colegas médicos nos Estados Unidos e ao redor do mundo aumentando a sua intenção de prescrever a ivermectina. That is also true that we have a number that prescribing ivermectin was above 200% in America between November and January. And also NIH changed the recommendation from the panel of the ivermectin guidelines from not to use, but
Right.
not or don't, because it was a little bit of effort to give hope. So prescribing off-label to doctors, which in America is a big step. Eu disse que isso era grande passo, porque apesar desse lento prescrever de ivermectina e outras drogas, ivermectina, hidroxicloroquina, dentre outros, é observado que, e tem lá os gráficos que eles mostram, um aumento de mais de 200% na prescrição de ivermectina entre novembro e janeiro de 2021, e que, principalmente, o NIH, que é o National Institute of Health nos Estados Unidos, mudou a percepção do painel de recomendações para tratamento da COVID de contraindicado para nem recomendo, nem contraindica. Que isso, na verdade, quer dizer que os médicos americanos podem sim prescrever de forma off-label a ivermectina.
First of all, the prescriptions in the US actually was 500% above 500. Normal. Yeah, for a couple of months when we had a big surge. That's one. So that was very satisfying. And like you mentioned, the NIH changing their recommendation, I think that was a big step, but we were extremely disappointed that they didn't give, a cautious recommendation. So, like I said, Roberta, we have made some progress, but it's hard. Every little step we have to fight so hard to get ivermectin accepted, and the evidence just keeps coming and coming and coming. The evidence is so large that it's a shock that it's still being denied.
And it's difficult because we have a geopolitical underneath, because we have the media, the Trust News Initiative all over the world, progressing, broadcasting news about not safe ivermectin, but the efficacy is like, no, they don't have efficacy. No, we don't have studies yet. Arthur Hill just published his last data from meta-analysis from WHO, and it was also disappointed, not mentioning unethical, because we all know for sure that's evidence for sure of benefit. And also, it's one of the biggest amounts of prescribing all over the world for
Absolutely.
like 4 years, 4 billion doses, 200
one countries. Of the safest and most used medicines in history. I mean, it's the most common veterinary medicine. It's a very common human medicine, and it's unparalleled safety. It's cheap. Again, I agree.
Desaponte. A gente fica muito decepcionado porque a gente sabe que é uma droga segura, que está listada na lista de medicamentos essenciais da OMS. Há mais de 30 anos vem sendo prescrita por 4 bilhões de doses, 200 países, e aumenta cada vez mais o número de países que, criam protocolos. Right now, we have Honduras guideline talking about ivermectin. You, from Frontline COVID Critical Care, could share with us your experience helping institutional health, Minister of Health in India and also other Southeast Asia country about these new guidelines and the difference between the pandemics in India before, when in 2020 they used it to go on prophylaxis, but somehow in between December, January, they stopped and they start the mass vaccination, and suddenly the surge of Delta rises and all the Ganges went dust because of all this amount of deaths. It's very, very sad what happens in India. And also they put in law the assessor from the WHO, from the position they made to change the use of ivermectin just as prophylaxis or as with treatment. How can you see your bounding with researcher and physician from Frontline COVID on India and also other countries in Southeast Asia?
Well, that's again another real satisfaction, and it's been an incredible experience. I mean, I am in contact with doctors and organizations similar to ours all over the world. I've spoken to leading physician groups in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka. I've interacted with doctors in India, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and in all of those countries, ivermectin has made incredible amount of progress. One point I want to make about that is that, in my opinion, there are very few true success stories. And the reason why, in every country where ivermectin is adopted, there's still a huge faction who don't like it, who fight against it. So there are civil wars around ivermectin in every country. I mean, even in South Africa and in Zimbabwe, where they put down a big surge in the winter, they're still fighting about ivermectin. In India, it's still controversial, even though it ended a humanitarian crisis there in many of the states. And so it's still an absurd situation, but there's a lot of fighting. But you know what? There's also a lot of winning. That's all I can say.
Also a lot of lives saved.
Yes.
É interessante o que ele acabou de dizer, porque eles foram fazer essa webconferência com os grupos da Índia, do Zimbábue, na África do Sul. Na África do Sul, inclusive, PANDA é uma das organizações não governamentais de médicos que utilizam a ivermectina e lutam para ela ser aprovada pelo SAFRA, né, que é o Anvisa de lá, e isso ainda está em embate, ainda é controverso, mas a gente sabe a dificuldade que tem de investir numa droga que não tem patente e que vai ser concorrente de outras drogas que estão sendo propostas agora para o FDA e CDC, I'm sorry. No caso do Zimbábue, é outro país, né, que também utilizou e agora venceu a pandemia, e isso a gente vê uma crescente avalanche de dados mostrando pontualmente quando se utiliza a ivermectina, os números caem exponencialmente e o número de óbitos. So it's finally very interesting that the circle just make a circle point when we think about Israel. Right now, Dr. Eli Schwartz, one of the co-founders of BIRD, the British Ivermectin Research Development, who is going on with researching for ivermectin in arbovirosis, other tropical disease like Zika and also dengue, since 2020, I think. And from May 2020, he started this research, this double-blind, randomized controlled trial of 96 aged 18 to 65 people who showed diminishing of viral load, transmissibility, and maybe a big game changer to reduce isolation time. It's very difficult to see when he say in his words that he tried to publish in 3 different periodics and could go along. What is going on with medical evidence, medicine-based evidence? Is there some kind of evidence of convenience?
Many of the studies have had difficulty publishing. Part of it's the pandemic, but it's clearly there's a bias against ivermectin. They just don't, either they don't believe it works or they're corrupt. And I think it's a little of both, and probably more corruption than bias, but certainly it's scientific bias and corruption. You know, the other point I want to make, Daniela, which is so sad, but you know, these civil wars around ivermectin, it's my opinion that it's the ivory towers that are causing all of this insanity. I mean, the arrogant scientists in the ivory towers, they just dismiss ivermectin, and they've already taken the position it doesn't work, and they can't walk it back. They can't accept the fact that it works now, and it's a terrible situation. But I think it's the scientists in the big cities that are actually hurting ivermectin.
O Dr. Pierre Kory comentou, e eu disse, sobre o fato do Dr. Eli Schwartz, um pesquisador e que trabalha com medicina de arboviroses, tropical medicine, em Israel, e desde maio de 2020 ele vem desenvolvendo um trabalho duplo cego controlado, placebo, todos os, né, as evidências necessárias de 96 pacientes que ele acompanha desde maio de 2020 até agora em abril. E ele mostrou queda de carga viral em humanos, com inclusive cultura viral, que é quando você faz o swab e em 5, 6 dias você vê que dentro da cultura o vírus não se replica mais. Então, o paciente deixa de ser transmissível, e isso é uma grande vitória para reduzir, inclusive, o tempo de isolamento, em termos de perdas econômicas, de absenteísmo, em termos de lockdown. Isso torna muito mais factível a ideia de que é tanto um medicamento favorável para tratar inicialmente, como também na profilaxia, porque a gente tem o mesmo raciocínio para o HIV, porque a gente tem o mesmo raciocínio com doenças em que você tem que impedir a entrada do vírus. I just say to the audience that we have the same knowledge from HIV, from hepatitis, from so on. We have to diminish the viral load. Is the principles from early 1913 Powellage. Hit hard, hit fast. We
and
have
with
to diminish the viral load.
Multiple agents, combination therapy early. That's what you got to do. Danielle, can I, Roberta, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Is that okay? I want to show, I think...
Dr. Pierre vai compartilhar a tela dele com os dados.
Let's see. I want to share this screen here.
Chega, Jean, me ajuda. Help
tell me, can you see? Yeah, there you go.
You can.
Let me just do a slideshow. Okay, so can you see this?
Yes.
You can see my slides. So here's what I want to say is you might not be able to read this, but when you look at the evidence for a medicine, and this is what I'm really tired of, is that everyone seems to focus only on the randomized clinical trials, as if the only way you can get to truth is down here. And when you look at the totality of the evidence for ivermectin, it is astounding. From those who've used it and the case series that have been published, to the dozens of observational controlled trials, the epidemiologic studies showing the health ministries that have used it in public health initiatives, the pharmacologic studies, the basic science showing all of the virus that it's effective in, and then all the meta-analyses. And so this is just a list of the incredible amounts of evidence. And so everybody argues about, oh, the quality of the trials, they're small, they're not large enough. Yeah, they're not pharmaceutical trials because no one's going to put money into it. But when you look at the totality of the evidence, it is overwhelming, and the situation is now officially absurd. It is completely absurd. So I just want to point that out. Now, let me not share. Stop screen. Okay, I'm back. Did you see that? Was that helpful?
Yes, very good. O Dr. Pierre agora compartilha com a gente dessa ideia de que nunca houve na história da ciência médica, principalmente das pandemias, que apenas estudos fossem validados pelos ensaios clínicos randomizados, duplo cego, placebo controlados. Isso é apenas a cunheira, o ponto, o ápice da pirâmide, é o que eu chamo de inversão do ônus da prova. We are inverting the pyramid of the evidence. We want to go from the only randomized controlled trials to see that is very good, but it's not the only way to see science of evidence. A gente tem os ensaios observacionais, a gente tem a ciência mostrando em modelo animal, em modelo humano, né? Anima nobile, em alma humana, a gente vê isso. A ivermectina mostrando eficácia de 85% na profilaxia, mais de 30 ensaios clínicos randomizados. We have 30 now, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. So we can go along with this narrative that we don't have enough evidence. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. These placebo-controlled trials are horror shows. They're totally unethical. They're giving patients sick with COVID placebo. It's disgusting.
We still have one study from our friend Dr. Flavio Cardegiani, which has like the paramount amount of studies here in Brazil published on COVID, and he also puts in charge in like Berlin, that we are talking about this. How can we still doing placebo controlled trials? Because we have this amount of evidence that it's the multi-drug therapy that achieves the better effect.
Yes.
Because all they do in the mass media is one study with few patients showing that ivermectin didn't show efficacy, because they also misguide people, general public, with the significant evidence of P less than 0.05 with efficacy. It's not the same. It's just to say that it's not random. It's not by chance. But if we do with a lot of more patients, we will achieve the number P less than 0.505. But it not only can say that only study with this amount of significance, it has benefit. We also know that it doesn't have harm. It doesn't cause harm. We have to put every day on charge this here in Brazil, highlight that, because the hepatotoxicity and also the neurotoxicity myths are going abroad everywhere. Todos os dias a gente tem que ficar se justificando na mídia que o mito da hepatotoxicidade, o mito da neurotoxicidade, isso não existe. Ela não causa mal, e principalmente ter um estudo pequeno e só porque não tem um P menor do que 0,05, ou seja, que não tem significância estatística, não quer dizer que não traga benefício. É só que o estudo é pequeno e precisaria de mais pacientes para a gente, ao longo do tempo, mostrar que não foi ao acaso. Just to say it, JAMA publication from ivermectin from Colombia, and also the Lopes Medina is the paramount study that they put in the meta-analysis from Cochrane and from WHO. And I think they are just doing the cherry picking of the worst studies to show that ivermectin doesn't benefit from anyone.
Yeah, it's that I think, it's taken me a while to get there, but you can see the corruption, right? The only study that's published in a major medical journal is a supposedly negative one. I actually didn't think Lopez Medina was a negative trial. I actually think they actually showed something. It was a failed trial. They had very few events. The patients were mostly healthy. And they did very well in both groups. But even then, there was a signal. But it's parroted around the world that it was a negative trial. And I agree. That's the one that they run with. And it's done. Publishing that trial with that conclusion has literally killed people.
O que o Dr. Pierre comenta é exatamente isso, que o estudo mostrava, ainda que dissesse que não tinha benefício, ainda assim tinha dados positivos, apesar dos erros metodológicos. Mas o engraçado é que as revistas científicas continuam apenas querendo publicar estudos com conclusões negativas. A exemplo do que a gente comentou do pesquisador de Israel, Dr. Eli Schwartz, ele foi a 3 periódicos tentar publicar o estudo dele e ainda está aguardando. Agora está no repositório de preprints, né? O MED-RXIV. Então, a gente está aguardando esse resultado ser publicado e revisado por pares, mas já mostra que a ivermectina tem ação, sim, em reduzir carga viral. Isso com dose de bula, não precisava ser uma superdosagem. Ele deu por 3 dias seguidos, com dose máxima de bula, e os pacientes não apresentaram graves efeitos colaterais e, pelo contrário, reduziram carga viral, transmissibilidade e tempo de sintomas. E nenhum deles precisou ser internado. Um, inclusive, foi até o hospital, mas imediatamente, em menos de 12 horas da ação da ivermectina, já teve alta. Ao contrário de mais de 50% do grupo placebo que teve que ter internamento por falta de ar. I just talked about the early Schwartz study showing benefits in model, in culture cells, and also in symptoms and hospitalizations. So about this misconduct in science, I want to finish with one last news from Daily Mail from August 1st, when he puts Lancet again on the fire. He's complaining about the information very important that Lancet didn't publish one of the most important alerts from Chinese scientists about human-to-human transmission. I don't know if you remember, but something between 10 January 10th and January 14th, it was about it's a SARS-CoV-2, a novel coronavirus, but we also know from SARS-CoV-1 and MERS-CoV that it has human-to-human transmission. I wonder, why not shut down Wuhan from this day? Just that. Because we have one study made from, I don't remember, it's Massachusetts or it's another university from US that show if we could do the lockdown of Wuhan 1 week earlier, we have to reduce the pandemic to 2/3 of the cases and mostly deaths. Eu disse agora que o que é mais espantoso nessa questão da má condução na pesquisa da ciência médica é que o Daily Mail faz uma denúncia agora em 1º de agosto, dizendo que o Lancet sentou em cima de evidências, ou seja, demorou a publicar, só foi publicar em 24 de janeiro, uma publicação pré-print, digamos assim, aliás, ele publicou na revista científica dele oficial, não foi nos sites de pré-print, que havia a possibilidade da transmissão humano-humano. E isso só aconteceu graças à denúncia de médicos chineses e pesquisadores que começaram a questionar por que o Lancet não estava publicando dados que eles já tinham fornecido desde 14 de janeiro. E através dessa denúncia é que o CDC da China, então, lança essa informação dizendo que é possibly human-to-human transmission. E tem um estudo de alguma universidade americana, que me foge o nome, que se o lockdown de Wuhan tivesse sido feito uma semana antes do previsto, que já foi tarde, só em 30 de janeiro, que eles começam a fechar o espaço aéreo lá externamente, eles fecharam internamente primeiro, mas não externamente, a gente poderia ter segurado essa pandemia em 2/3 de casos e muito provavelmente número de óbitos. What to say about this? Just one more thing about Lancet and publication bias, and also comprising with the Chinese government, about also the letter, about the INSCREVA, about the lab, the origin of the virus. What about that?
It's, all I can say is the man and the doctor I was a year ago and the one I am now, I don't know who to trust anymore, really. It's very difficult. I don't really believe a lot of what I read. I just feel like very, very little of it is transparent, where you actually can see data. It's mostly narratives. And unless I can see and trust the data, I can't really believe very much. And just because something appears in a journal, you have to ask yourself what's not appearing in the journal. And it's a very sad and very, very scary state of affairs. I really don't know what to trust. The data and the behavior of so much of society is not transparent. So it's hard to trust. You don't know what to trust anymore.
We have all the security and the reliable data that we have from these periodicals and the scientific magazines, and now we are just in a lot of mug. It's difficult to be very sure of what you read. For the first time, we are more certain about what we see and what we read on the preprint sites than in the scientific magazines. Pela primeira vez na história, os médicos se sentem mais à vontade lendo o que eles veem nos sites de pré-publicação do que em algumas revistas científicas, principalmente quando uma leva 2 strikes. Lancet is going to do the second strike from fraud or misguided, misconduct in science. It's very difficult for a bicentenarian publishing magazine. About the vaccination, Dr. Pierre, what could you say and could you tell us about how America is going on, how the American volunteer How is the government campaign door to door? And what about the VARS reports? Ever since began the vaccination in January, as an intensivist, as an ER medical doctor, what could you see in the ER rooms from the beginning of the vaccination in both adult and now in young people? Eu perguntei agora ao Dr. Pierre, com relação à vacinação, como é que o senhor está vendo a América, a adesão à vacinação, essa nova campanha do BID de casa em casa, batendo na porta para tentar estimular as pessoas a se vacinarem, como é que ele está vendo os relatórios do site de vigilância de eventos adversos, e como médico intensivista de sala de emergência, o que ele observou epidemiologicamente no cenário de emergência após a vacinação ter sido iniciada em janeiro para o público em geral adulto e agora mais recentemente em jovens.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, the point about what data to believe and trust, I want the vaccines to be safe. I want them to work, and I want them to not produce variants that are going to kill us in the end. Okay, I want all three things to be true. The challenge is that the VARS data is downright disturbing. Nobody talks about it. It's not talked about in the United States. All you hear is everyone must be vaccinated. Everyone must be vaccinated. And officially, I want to be neutral on that because I want more data. Because, you know, on one hand, you're hearing that it does reduce death and hospitalization, although the data from other countries don't seem to support that right now, from Israel and the UK. In the US, I'm getting a lot of conflicting data on the ground. In the media, you're getting absolute certainty that you need to get vaccinated. And again, it's a very disturbed state of affairs. I don't really know what to say about the vaccines, but I can tell you that lack of transparency is hurting the vaccines. Everybody who was willing to get vaccinated in the United States, I would say the majority have already gotten vaccinated, but they've hit kind of a ceiling. And I think there's a large part of society that just doesn't trust what they're being told. And so they've lost the trust of the agencies. And so I think the vaccination program is running into a lot of trouble. And especially now when you have a lot of people who've been vaccinated getting sick, people are even less trusting of the vaccines. And so, you know, I just don't think we have enough data to really know what to do with these vaccines. The VARS data is, what disturbs me about the VARS data is the consistent lack of discussion of it in this country. Nobody covers it in the media. Nobody discusses it openly. The only people that do are like select scientists who look at it. They try to discuss it, but they're shouted down.
The same in Brazil. It's the big white elephant in the room, in the living room.
It's disturbing.
É igual no Brasil. Parece uma questão de um grande elefante branco na sala. E que ninguém quer falar sobre os eventos adversos. Eu também, como Dr. Pierre, gostaria que as vacinas fossem seguras, que elas não causassem danos, que não estivessem envolvidas ou não nessa teoria de que podem sim estar induzindo a presença e a pressão seletiva por variantes. Basta a gente pensar no contexto de que após cada grande vacinação em massa, a gente vê esses surtos de novas cepas. Tanto aconteceu no Chile, como agora em Israel, como também agora nos Estados Unidos. E de forma interessante, no Japão, a gente tem um último estudo agora mostrando que a variante lambda do Chile, ela está tendo escape vacinal a todas as vacinas. O que ele diz que é preocupante é esse silêncio acerca do debate, da transparência, e isso está minando a confiança do americano para fazer sua vacinação, seja a segunda dose, seja a primeira. Eles atingiram aquele patamar ali em torno de 48%, 180 milhões de doses, mas ainda assim as pessoas estão muito hesitantes em fazer sua vacinação. What about the myocarditis data? What about the related adverse events in young people? Because now in Brazil, we are starting to discuss vaccination under the 18 years. That's very sound concerning to me, because the last study that I saw from Pfizer, phase 3, has only 1,100 patients in this group of 12 to 15, 12 to 17. It's very few patients to do a mass vaccination, especially if you see the data from England, UK, US, Israel, talking about hospitalization and death in this middle age. We don't have, in this age, we don't have this lethal group of certain condition, almost because we have 70 to 50% of the hospitalization in adolescent and child from conditions that have obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular conditions. It's not healthy young men that are having 6 in 100,000 chance to have myocarditis. When they have a chance to go hospitalization for COVID, 1 in 100,000. That's very strange to me as a public effort issue.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, Roberta, my problem is I don't care about myocarditis. And you know why? Is because I think the myocarditis ignores too much. Myocarditis is one complication, and it gets a lot of attention in the newspapers. Why can't we talk about the deaths, the unexplained amount of deaths? Like, what I found strange is over the early winter, they stopped the vaccines after a few cases of central venous thrombosis. They stopped vaccinating over a few cases. And I thought that was very bizarre, because there was way more worrisome side effects than central venous thrombosis. And then now they're arguing about myocarditis when there are lots of other side effects that they're not addressing. So I don't know. I just don't think that we are really being scientific, open, and transparent with looking at the side effects. And I think we need to do that to understand how to go forward. If vaccines are the answer, then let's talk about it. Let's make a rational argument, use good data, and let's say, you know what, we've reviewed the data, this is the way forward. And if we find that it's not the way forward, that the toxicity or the efficacy is not going to be there, then we shouldn't persist. We're not being scientific about it.
Let's redo all over again.
Yes,
start the platform.
Data, open exchange of data, analysis, interpretation, and discussion.
It was always like that in medicine, in vaccination times. We always look for the risk-benefit ratio and go vaccinated, immunocompromised patients. You lost my audio. Could you hear me?
You're back. I got you.
I don't understand, as infectious disease physician, I study HIV. We don't do and don't pursue vaccination with below CD4 200. We know they can't go for it and do amount of response immune with antibodies. So why don't we use this rationality to the COVID pandemics? We also are talking about third doses with the same platform, but we are also seeing people which didn't have COVID also have very few and very lots of adverse events from vaccine. The syndrome post-vaccination COVID, say it like this. So they have arthralgia, myalgia, headache, brain fog, just long COVID all over again. So why pursue with the same platform with spike protein? Is that the problem? Can we do it again? Why don't know they're changing the platform?
Roberta, we make too much sense, you and I. It's called, we have a phrase in America we call preaching to the choir. Do you understand the phrase preaching to the choir?
Yes. We say,
we're preaching to the converted. I get it. I think you're probably, your listeners understand this too. The other thing that I want to point out, which is also saddening and terrifying, is that the vaccination program and policy is built on dismissing early treatment options. And that is horrible to watch as a physician. Because of these emergency use authorizations, you can't have an effective early treatment. That's number one. Number two, ivermectin is profoundly effective at protecting you from getting COVID. I've been on ivermectin for 8 months. I take it once a week. I've never gotten COVID. I am around COVID all the time. That's all I do. Again, that's an N of 1, but we have many, many studies showing this incredible protectiveness of ivermectin. And you would think that's an important message to get out there to the world, especially to all those areas that don't have vaccines, can't afford vaccines, the immunosuppressed who can't effectively mount a response to a vaccine, those who are contraindicated to vaccines, and those who are terrified of vaccines. They're not evil people. Like, can't we help everybody? The demonization of those who can't or don't want to be vaccinated it's another sadness that I'm seeing.
Yes, for the first time, we're seeing not only an apartheid, a new apartheid from people who are vaccinated and not vaccinated. You're less citizen denied, you have less citizen rights denied, and we are fooling around with misjudging science, but also doing some sanitary dictatorial passport that doesn't match the science at all. That doesn't make any sense. Eu disse agora, e o Dr. Pierre corrobora, que a gente não está fazendo nenhum sentido científico, que a gente sempre estudou medicina, HIV, vacina, os imunossuprimidos do transplante, eles não respondem muito bem a vacinas, eles têm um sistema imune fraco, como os idosos, que a gente já sabe, né? O processo de imunossenescência. The immunosenescence from elderly, they are talking about the third dose, so go on. E essas pessoas poderiam estar sendo beneficiadas, por exemplo, da ivermectina, porque um paciente HIV, um paciente transplantado, um paciente que tem uma doença autoimune, ou um paciente que já é idoso e tem um sistema imune mais frágil e não consegue montar uma resposta robusta de anticorpos, poderia estar fazendo uso também da ivermectina como profilaxia, se ela se mostrou tão eficaz como 85%, né, de evitar a infecção pela Covid, ou pelo menos levar uma infecção oligossintomática. O que é estranho é ver esses dois pesos e duas medidas. This amount of evidence necessary to approve ivermectin, but emergency use authorization for vaccines. It's condescending.
Like this. Yes. One is up here, one is down here.
Yes. It's what I call two
Roberta,
waves.
Roberta, the other point I want to make is, and this is where I want to be positive, is that my hope is that because we're seeing so many breakthrough infections with the vaccines, that the leaders are going to recognize that we need multiple tools to fight this. Vaccines alone are not going to do it. There's too many people who don't want the vaccine for good and bad reasons, okay? And you're just not going to get everybody to take the vaccines, number one. Number two, this is the most highly mutagenic virus in the history of viruses. We're going to have escape variants. We're already seeing it now. You need more to bring to the fight. And so I'm hoping this opens the door for reason, sense, and that they're going to see that ivermectin and many other agents. I read someone today who said this is the most treatable respiratory virus in the world. And I actually believe that to be true. When you look at all the different treatments that have shown some efficacy, I mean, there's like a dozen of them. I like ivermectin just because it's so cheap and safe and it's been used for decades, but that's not the only one that works. So I just hope that there is an opening for early treatment and prevention with other, even nasopharyngeal antiseptic gargles and nasal sprays. I mean, you know that, right? That can protect you from COVID, and also it's an early treatment. So really simple stuff that people can do at home. Where are our leaders telling us to do that?
And what we have now, it's a question from our friend. He is a cardiologist here in Brazil, Dr. Gil Peck. He's asking you if you know any of these vaccine studies that diminish or stop transmission, and why so vaccinating children for this reason, if there is any study that can put some point to that.
Can I just say no and no? I don't
No
know.
and no, Billy. Não tem nenhum estudo que mostre que reduz a transmissibilidade, nem que é necessário vacinar crianças, por tudo que a gente já comentou. Elas não são grupo de risco, elas não estão internando mais, elas não estão morrendo mais. E aquilo que a gente comentou, these vaccines, Dr. Pierre, they don't put an IgA response in the mucal respiratory, the mucosa. So they don't put any of the low viral load that we saw in other vaccines that we have, like measles, very efficient one to stop outbreaks, stop transmissibility. If we had one vaccine that I would go and appreciate, do a mass vaccination, but it's not the point. Não é o caso. Nós não temos uma vacina que produz IgA, que é a imunoglobulina que fica na mucosa. Como o Dr. Pierre comentou, a gente tem sprays nasais de antissépticos que lavam a nossa cavidade nasal e diminui a presença do vírus lá ligado. Então, isso também diminui. Já se mostrou com carragina, né, que é uma alga proteica usada lá na Argentina. Dr. Carvalho, Dr. Hector Carvalho do some research with carragina and ivermectin spray. They do it, it's prophylaxis. And also we can do this, as we say here in Brazil with another friend from us, Dr. Ricardo Zimmermann, combined therapy. Vaccine could be lots of platforms, but not this one who choose to don't stop transmissibility, has very, very serious adverse events, and also prophylaxis. But you pointed out what I want to bring. I think yesterday, Dr. Fauci just say this huge amount of $3.4 billion to the program to initiate the use of Regeneron to prophylaxis. So now they understand that there is a drug that can treat and prevent COVID, and it's feasible. It's oral, but it's not cheap. And I don't know if it's efficacy. What it has efficacy. What do you think?
He was describing ivermectin. we know that he was describing ivermectin. So we have a video. I want to try to get it. Hold on. Let me try to share with you a video that we did today. I can't find it right now. Hold on. Where is it? We made a funny video based on that statement of his. All right, I'll find it in a minute. I can't find it right now. Anyway, yeah, but he was describing ivermectin. I mean, he's looking for a pill that's right under his nose. It's actually, no, what he's looking for is a very expensive, patent-protected, novel pharmaceutical oral antiviral.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's clear.
And also the amount of money spent on remdesivir and also the platform of monoclonal antibodies, they saw they didn't see what we see with ivermectin, because as long as you don't have to pay attention on the mutation that the virus has, HIV, HCV, hepatitis B, all the mutations that they can do with the replicase and the enzymes to duplicate it, the ivermectin doesn't have any problem with the mutations, because it robust your immune system. It shut down the response to don't eat me protein, to 3CL3O, and stimulate interferon gamma to our natural antiviral system, and shutting down all the loss of old mitochondria. It's very interesting that it's the inflammasome the CERN, the main nucleus of this disease. I think 75% of the response of the hospedeiro, the patient, is that produce the disease, not the lethality of the virus. It's mostly our inflammation. And ivermectin goes right there in metabolic syndrome, in the farnesoid factor, diminishing the metabolism of lipids and also the carbohydrates, and also benefiting the inflammatory response of interleukin 6, and so on.
Yes. So here's this, Roberta, watch this. I'm going to share with you something. Hold on. Now it's in English. I hope you guys will like this. Hold on. Let's see if I don't know what you're seeing. Can you hear this?
Yes.
You can see it?
I want a pill that blocks the viral function. I want to give it once a day, if possible. I want it to be low in toxicity. And I want to have very minimal drug-drug interactions. So orally administered, single pill, given for 7 to 10 days, little drug-drug interaction and low toxicity. Give me that and I'll be really happy.
Está mostrando um meme. Eu gostaria muito de ter uma droga oral que não tivesse interação medicamentosa, que fosse barata, que reduzisse a carga viral e diminuísse a entrada do vírus na célula. It's very good one.
Did you like it? You could see that? I didn't know if that worked.
Yes, we saw it.
All right, good.
We heard it. A gente
All right,
viu, a gente ouviu, eu traduzi. I translated.
Yeah, we were trying to have some fun. It's not funny, but
yes.
You know, trying to have some fun. I don't know.
We have to have this message of hope, since
Yes.
we have the 24th of July for Ivermectin Day. We now have this huge league of scientists and frontline physicians that are doing the best to research, to study, to combine and exchange this experience. And we are doing that so on. And every day, it's very good to see you at the YouTube classes on Frontline, Dr. Pomaric, Dr. Mobin, Dr. Gilly is a very good friend of mine. It's very united with him. And we are trying to do what we can to exchange this information, to show to Brazilian audience that we are doing the same. We are not alone. People are having the same doubts, the same fears, but also the same happiness and joy and hope that we are pursuing a good path, a good one. We only have these little rocks named big farm, big tax, big government, and global geopoliticals that are going in our, putting some sand in our shoes, but we are going on.
And we're little warriors. It's David versus Goliath, or Roberta versus Goliath. So we'll get there.
Yes, I would like to say so much. Thank you so much, Professor. I want to give you this little last minute so you can do your final considerations and whatever you want to say to Brazil, to exchange your knowledge, your concerns, or your good hopes. Eu queria agradecer ao Dr. Pierre por esse momento maravilhoso da gente estar aqui dividindo as nossas experiências para mostrar para o público brasileiro que nós não estamos sozinhos, que nós não estamos fazendo eco aqui numa gruta no Brasil. A gente está aqui com médicos, pesquisadores da linha de frente dos Estados Unidos, do Reino Unido, como a doutora Tess, da Argentina, como o doutor Hector Carvalho, tantos outros na África do Sul, na Índia, e que a gente gostaria de deixar esses últimos momentos para ele fazer suas considerações finais, suas mensagens de esperança, que é isso que a gente tem para dizer para a população brasileira, uma mensagem de esperança e de que podemos vencer esse medo, esse temor, que há sim um tratamento, lógico, não é preciso baixar a nossa guarda, precisamos manter o cuidado de máscara, álcool gel, distanciamento básico, mas principalmente para que a gente possa ter, os governantes não sejam como as Big Techs e a Big Pharma, uma pedra no nosso sapato, um empecilho para que a gente possa ir à luta dos nossos direitos. I think we now have to unite physicians, researchers, but also the united population, the civil rights gave this lesson to us. We have to do it again. And as French did, as Italian are doing, we Brazilian, we American, North American, Latin America, we all over the world, we have to go to the streets. We have a phrase from a very good politician in Brazil that says, Ulisses Guimarães, the only thing that fears politicians is people on street.
Yeah. I like that. No, I appreciate everything you said. And you wanted me to give like a closing statement, Roberta?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Listen, I just want to say that, my organization, we're some of the most highly published physicians in our specialty. I mean, we've made multiple contributions to medicine over decades. And I want people to go to our site, which is flccc.net.
Jean, vamos colocar o site do Frontline COVID que ele está colocando agora.
And look at our protocols. This is a treatable disease. It is a very treatable and very preventable disease, even without a vaccine. And we know how to do that. We know how to prevent getting sick, and we know how to treat you when you get sick. And our protocols are there, and we're very proud of them. And so I really just want to finish with that simple message. It's a treatable disease. Don't believe what you hear, that it's not treatable. And there are multiple options of treatment. We've tried to select what we think are the most potent and most pragmatic, and that are best combined. So the multi-drug therapy, we think that the choices that we've made are the best, although there are many approaches that you could use. But we invite your audience to look at our protocols and use them. You will see unbelievable responses. And the last thing I want to say is long haul COVID and post-vaccine syndromes. Go to our website. It's called the I Recover Protocol. We are rescuing so many patients who are sick with long haul COVID and post-vaccine syndromes with ivermectin. So go to the I Recover Protocol on our website.
Jean, coloca para mim, por favor, COVID-19 criticalcare.com. Esse é o site do Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance que o público pode ver. Inclusive, tem uma aba lá, protocolos, que a gente tem o iMask Prevention Home Treatment e o de I Recovery Management, que é para o Long COVID, o COVID longo, pós-COVID. Eles são acessíveis, traduzíveis, tem traduzido para português, espanhol, diversas línguas, e o público pode checar lá, logicamente, sempre que possível, acompanhado, né, pela avaliação médica, mas eles tentaram utilizar o que havia de mais acessível, de menor custo e menor risco, mas sempre lembrando que são orientações gerais. A gente precisa ter um acompanhamento sempre guiado por médico e, de preferência, sempre ter uma avaliação laboratorial também, porque a gente sabe que tem inúmeros efeitos colaterais, interações, então as opções terapêuticas versam de forma individualizada. I just told to the audience that they can go there and see the protocols and go to show to the physician from their most importance, and they discuss, because the autonomy of the patient is very important in this point. Never in an era knowledge made so much sense to save lives. And I think that if Winston Churchill was alive today, maybe he would say, no, so many gave their lives in order of the arrogant little ones. Maybe something like that, because of the ivory tower that you said.
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed of what is happening between my friends, physicians, because nowadays it's very difficult to talk and to establish a consensus, and maybe people can go along and discuss anything don't get with discussions and violence and stuff. It's very difficult.
It's very difficult, but yeah, let's end on a positive note, Roberta, because there's about 3 things you brought up that I could talk about, and they're all unpleasant. I can't talk to many of my old colleagues and friends. It's,
Yes.
it's there's one side and another, and it's very hard to talk. It's sad.
Mm-hmm.
But let's keep fighting for truth and help our patients. And I know we are. It's funny. I'm supposed to have doubt. I'm supposed to be humble. I generally am. I always want to doubt myself, but I've been treating COVID for 8 months with ivermectin. I mean, it is unbelievably effective. I mean, it just flat out works. So that's my message.
For the best in Brazil, we can have without prescription. It's very easy, achievable, cheap. Also in magistral forms, we've manipulated, and it's very good. So people can have this option, because if nothing is else to treat, maybe with only this, we know that for sure a little percentage of the patients will complicate, mostly with thromboembolic phenomena, but I think we can manage that, because if we could change only the subject, just seek for attention when you are worst or getting without air, it would be the best. I won't matter which drug would do, not just sick when you're down or desaturating.
I hear you.
The answer is that.
Treat early, like we said.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Roberta. I hope your audience learned something.
Thank you very much. Eu agradeço demais, Dr. Pierre, agradeço a todos. Ele disse que exatamente a gente tem que ter em mente que é uma doença tratável e que há 8 meses ele toma semanalmente, e esse protocolo que eles desenvolveram para tratamento e prevenção está lá disponível para todos terem acesso. A gente espera que vocês tenham esclarecido algumas dúvidas com relação a vacinas, segurança, questionamentos. Ninguém aqui, eu gosto sempre de pontuar, é contra peremptoriamente, mas eu acho que a gente precisa discutir melhor, questionar grupos de risco, relação risco-benefício, e não sair atirando para todo lado, fazendo vacinação em massa sem questionar como, quando, onde e por quê. Muito obrigada a todos. Thank you very much, Dr. Pierre. It was a pleasure. Maybe in another opportunity we can share again.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Good luck to everyone. Bye now.
E agora eu só